Yeah, thanks. Hi, Mohit. Thank you so much. And good noon, everyone. And I know it is a COVID time, and virtual meet is only a way to connect with a larger audience. We have all been dying to meet in physical format, but I know still a lot of time has to spent on virtual, I guess. In the meantime, I will just take the quick introductions of the people who have on the call, and especially thanks to two gentlemen who have agreed to become the panelist for this particular discussion, who have had immense experience around SAP HANA projects. Uh, uh, they have been running successfully for last 3.5 years plus, and have gone through various thought processes while evaluating HANA, and also conceptualizing the entire project till the successful implementations and running it successfully now. So I would take upon Mr. Arvind Koul, who is representing Uno Minda, Minda Industries, who have one of the conglomerate in the entire auto segment. They were probably, I guess, the first one to come out with S4 HANA in the auto industry in India. Arvind, you may correct me in case if I go wrong anywhere. And
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. Yeah.
thank you so much. And we are really fortunate to get associated for that particular project with you. And since 2016, you have opted for SAP HANA, and Tech9 as well as IBM were fortunate to partner with you in that. And welcome, Arvind, on the call. Uh, Second, we have Mr. Swapan. Swapan is a CIO for International Tractors. The brand is represented with Sonalika Tractors. It is again one of the fastest growing brand in the country on the tractor front, and they've been doing phenomenally well. And I've been keep reading a lot of news about them, about their success stories, and the kind of innovations and the kind of technologies adoption which is happening under the leadership of Mr. Swapan. Welcome, Swapan, on the call. I would like you to kindly, get your video on so that people could really see you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, my fellow friends, and thank you, Amit, for giving me this time to interact with my all fellow friends who are probably evaluating this S4 HANA, or maybe certain kind of evaluation they are passing through or going through. So thank you so much once again, Amit, for giving this day's time to interact with my fellow friends.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. Arvind, you want to say something?
No, I think thanks everyone, and good afternoon to everyone who has joined. So definitely, during the COVID times, so we had to meet like this in a virtual conference. But these kind of forums are very, very important, because you come to know what is happening in technology, what we have done, or maybe some other organizations have done, and how that information can be replicated to other people. So it's a very close forum, and I think we need to share information. Communication is the key. So that's very, very important. So what we have learned, what are the lessons learned, that should be propagated across the industry so that people know. So very good initiative by you, the Tech9 and the IBM team. Appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you, Arvind. And now I take upon to thank Rohit Sood. Rohit Sood represents IBM. He's a technology leader in IBM, representing the entire technical pre-sales team across the country. And he has been associated with SAP HANA since this charter was taken up by IBM in 2014, and IBM really came out with a very innovative landscape to address the SAP HANA. And he was one of the first one to really get hands-on around things. And therefore, I thought to have Rohit also on the call so that we could, extract a lot of insights about the industry, about the market, about the adoption of SAP HANA, and what is all IBM doing around it to ensure that customer gets better technology at the lowest cost possible. Maybe TCO should be great, ROI should be fantastic, and especially during the COVID times, how can IBM really help the customers to really go over with the current crisis of cash flows, still helping them to get them automated on the ERP front and their organizational workflow processes. So welcome, Rohit. Some
Thank
keywords
you,
from your
Amit.
side.
Thank you, Amit, and really a pleasure being on the call. And I would definitely try my best to share my experiences, which I had with clients, and uh, of course, we have Arvind and Swapan sir from one of the organizations who have adopted HANA, and definitely I can share much more experiences with you in terms of the landscape, in terms of the environment which customers go through, in terms of the sizing, in terms of the lows and highs of the sizing, and definitely we learn from the experience. Thank you for being me on the call.
Thanks, Rohit, and thanks everyone on the call, and thank you so much being on time. And that was really good thing, at least on the virtual meet, that people log in on time and log off on time. That's very important, and we've been able to really manage our times well. Now, because this particular session, what we have organized is not a one-way session. It is not gonna be a presentation way. It is a pure discussion. Like the roundtable we do in the physical format, this is that sort of discussion. That's the reason we would not have so many people on the call, but we can have limited so that we can have a fruitful discussions all around. Now, because this is gonna be an interactive session, I would request everyone on the call to kindly raise your hand, or maybe put your questions on the chat box, or maybe even if you want to interrupt us and have your questions rolling in, we would absolutely be more delighted to really take up those questions. Now, I'm just taking being a moderator for this particular call. I will initiate the discussions now, and request you all to kindly pay your attention. In case if you have any questions, kindly put your questions on the chat box, and my team there will be watching the chat box very closely and will bring up those questions so that it gets addressed by the panelists. So here we start. So Swapan sir, my question to you was, as while we got engaged into SAP HANA project of yours, and we really had good discussion about technology and why these technology really need to be penetrated for such kind of critical landscape. So I just wanted to understand what does SAP HANA means, for the CIOs, especially for the manufacturing and for the other, industries. How is SAP HANA as specific is really helping organization to automate, and how will it really do during the COVID and after COVID times?
Okay. Thanks, Amit, for this good opportunity to interact with all the people. The question is, let's look at from business perspectives. For the time being, let's just to put the SAP HANA in a different format. So let's understand from business perspective how the business is looking at, keeping in mind these pre-COVID situations and post-COVID situations. Although we have taken all these things, the pre-COVID situations. So things is here that from business perspective, what kind of things actually we are looking at from coming years, at least for 5 to 8 years at least. The most important part of that thing is this visibility of operations, visibility of my top line, bottom line in the realistic manner, so that we can take the right decision and the realistic, based on the realistic data. So one of the way actually we need to have that, in order to get that kind of things, or in order to achieve that kind of visibility of every corner of the operation, every corner of this functionality in the organization, it is required to have that kind of high powerful message, high powerful processing power actually. So from that perspective, we can think of that we need to transform our overall computing platform and computing engine, so that they're based on this primary, based on this secondary, based on this in-house, everything, every data should be combined and consolidated, so that you can take this right decision at the right moment. So with respect to this computing platform, computing engine, and computing in the first moment of computing resources, so we need to take it that way, so that the system should be transformed like this. So now coming to this platform, that SAP HANA, we are looking at SAP HANA in terms of my transformative platform, in terms of my top line, bottom line growth. because our organization is growing very fast, more than 32% CAGR. So in order to keep this pace in the coming 5 to 10 years, so our transformative platform should be capable of handling that huge volume of data in terms of this processing, because that instant decision would be taken on the fly, or maybe on the board, or maybe on the way people are moving. Second important point is that the empowering my people. It is not that always, the conceptual thing. It is that all the decision would be done by top people. Now, what we are thinking conceptually, it is required to empower the people at the bottom line also. They should take that kind of, decision that would be helpful to take the more faster, more realistic decision to the top management. So overall, that empowering the bottom line, empowering my top line, we need to establish that transformative platform. So from that perspective, I'm looking at SAP HANA is one of the most potential platform to help you, the CIO of this organization, as well as every people of the organizations.
No, very well said, sir. I think the key point, what I really take out of this message is eventually empowering the organizational decision-making process. Okay, and I think, and you obviously data is the key, automation is the key nowadays, and I think if we really don't get into all these, it'll be very difficult, to really cope up and keep a pace with the moving world scenarios and also competing with your peers. So absolutely, well taken point, sir. Arvind, I think I will roll in the same question to you, because now it is almost close to 3.5 years you have been onto this platform. And since you were also using SAP for last 10 years prior to that, and I think you guys have been the leading ones to opt certain technologies, in terms of certain process automations and workflow automations. So how did you really gain, an insight while deploying SAP HANA? And I would want to add one more question to it is, since there are various platforms available, to deploy SAP HANA on this particular thing, and there are various options available, be it on cloud, be it on on-premise, be it Intel Technologies, be it IBM Power as a separate platform. I'm merging both the questions, but I would want you to really answer one by one, that how did SAP HANA really help you, and how does that infrastructure conceptualization, what you did 3.5 years back, has helped you to really achieve your business objective?
Thanks, Amit. So before jumping on to the questions, let me first talk about why SAP or why any other ERP. Okay.
Sure.
Now, everyone has seen, let's forget COVID at this point of time. So digitalization is the key. That's the key. And now, pre-COVID and post-COVID, it was, right now it is mandatory. Maybe pre-COVID it was not mandatory. Now it has become a necessity. It has really become a necessity. And when we talk about digitalization, so from industries, mostly processing industry, manufacturing, so ERP, SAP, that is key. That is very, very important. So I'm just talking about for the people who plan to do it, but this is a necessity now. You can't actually move out of digitalization. If you want to grow in this competitive market, you need to leap onto that ladder. That's very, very important. And now coming on to your second point, so what we have gained. So I won't be talking about anything technical in the first instance. So I will just talk about the business part. So first and foremost, your SAP system, it eliminates, I can't say completely eliminates, it's a journey, but your manual processes get eliminated. Your all those processes, business support processes, they get eliminated. That manual process get eliminated. You automate those processes over a period of time. It doesn't happen in the first instance, but over a period of time. And what Swapan sir just told about top line and bottom line, definitely the increased revenue, there's a revenue increase. There's a lot of cost savings, maybe tangible, intangible, both. So in manufacturing, we can even say there are a lot of what has happened pre-implementation and post-implementation. The production delays are very less. That's an important factor. What we even have calculated, the production delays is very, very less. Okay. And nowadays, if you see how dynamic the situation is regarding the tax regulations, GST you have seen, and very important, the statutory compliance requirements. So these are so dynamic, but having these systems in place, having this environment in place, you overcome all these challenges. And I think what Swapan sir told, that decision making, that's very, very important. Nowadays, what is happening, management is just asking for efficient decisions at a glance. Now you see, we talk about cloud, we talk about analytics, so that's all related to your efficient decision making. Okay. Now, coming on to your second question, what we gained. This is from the business point of view. And if I talk about from the technology point of view, yes, 3.5 years back, we partnered with IBM, and Tech9 was a partner for developing our SAP HANA solution on Power. And I think I should say that Power 9 or Power 8, what we have gone that time. So it is the best way to host your SAP system. And nowadays we have done it on SUSE, but nowadays it is a benefit, because you already now IBM has already acquired Red Hat, and you don't need to go to different pillars. So you have a single pillar, that's IBM. It owns a complete responsibility of this. So Power series, and is very reliable, very important. If I talk about security point of view, so I'm very happy, and touch wood. So we are very happy on the security front. So those are the key takeaways from why we need SAP, and then when we have SAP, what are the key benefits. So this is the key.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Arvind. Yes, I could really, pick up from some of the important area, and I think you pointed out very, very rightly that, these kind of systems and these kind of processes really bring in a lot of transparency in the organization. Okay, it also keeps your production, uptime very high, so that you don't lose revenues just because of disrupts which happens in the production. And most important, because now as India is moving towards its 5 trillion economy, and the government of India is now ensuring that all the compliances and all the things are really should be in place, so that organizations are well placed in their growth pattern. And I think those compliances are very, very important, and these technologies really help to really keep you compliant all the time, and do not worry about all these hassles of legalities, and only focus on the business aspect of it. So absolutely very well stated.
Rather, this is essential, not desirable. I can say it this way.
Essential. Yes, I picked up that too. Now this has become a mandatory now.
Mandatory, yeah.
Absolutely. And you also pointed out about a security, and I would just want to take one more minute on it, and then I would go back to Rohit for the next stand. Yes, you are right. I mean, because IBM Power comes with a very different platform altogether, and it is not a general purpose processor. Therefore, being the risk processor as a technology, the security is absolutely, we also, at times say that these are non-hackable machines. So absolutely, you really don't have to really worry about your security patterns and, various patches to ensure that your production is running successfully and without any downtime. So yes, that's a very important element. So thanks, Arvind. Rohit, I come back to you. And I would want to take a little disruptive question with you, because most of the customers of ours and also in the industry are confused at this point in time, because especially during the COVID, and I'm sure post-COVID also, everybody have sort of adopted a terminology or maybe a thought process that cloud is only way to go. Okay, and I think this is only the way they can survive. This is the only way they can probably keep their entire thought processes up and time, maintain their uptime and everything. How do you see this, and how do you see IBM Power and maybe entire thought process from an SAP HANA deployment as an on-premise processes? What is your thought processes around all this confusion which is happening around the SAP HANA deployment as a specific technology?
Sure, Amit. Before I jump into the cloud piece of it, actually, I want to thank Arvind and Swapanji to bring in the business value benefits of an SAP HANA piece of it. But then I'll like to add a pinch of technical thing to that business environment, right? Now when I look at SAP HANA platform, right, I will look at it. Actually, it is a revolutionized platform, which is actually giving meeting the demands of the digital economy. When I say digital economy, everything today in a COVID situation, we have seen how digital is is impacting each and every human life in nature, right? Whether it is working from remote, whether it is online transactions, it is all digital economy, right? Most of the people have not been going to the banks. It is all digital transactions which are happening, and we are all into a digital world. And probably COVID has helped us push that digital economy much more in terms of a push, which probably wouldn't have been there if the COVID was not there. Now, when I look at that digital economy, then when I look at each companies, where every company is looking like a technology company, right? Because it is not only the business piece of it which they need to drive, they also need to adopt technologies to improve their business outcomes. Now, from a key challenge which most of the companies which had faced in terms of an industry is tracking results in real time. And then when I look at traditional databases versus an SAP HANA engine altogether, they are actually, SAP HANA is helping successfully organizations to remove data silos and provide a single platform for not only storing their transactional, but also storing their operational, warehousing, event, and unstructured data in a one single repository, right? And that is a technological benefit which SAP brings in. And this is where, most of the time customers are feeling it difficult in terms of to go back into their management and saying why we need to move to HANA. It is not only about getting immediate results, but it is all about laying a roadmap of moving from a non-digital to a digital kind of a platform, right? Now, when I look at it, there are typically three areas where customers are in terms of, if I put it, the customers, they are into three buckets today, right? The first bucket is an existing SAP customer who has a traditional database, and SAP has laid down a guideline which was earlier 2025. Now they have increased to 2027. By 2027, every customer needs to move from traditional database to SAP HANA. That is the first mandate of a bucket of customers who are already on existing SAP, and they have a mandate from SAP to move to an SAP HANA by 2027 now. The second bucket of customers are where we call a greenfield clients who are deploying SAP as a new environment. Most of these customers pick up S4, and when I look at an S4, it is more of a complete digital innovation which SAP brings in, and the organization goes and take advantages of that S4 deployment. And the third piece of engine, which is also important, is an existing customers who have already moved to SAP HANA, who are there sitting on an unflexible infrastructures, not getting value and a benefit and performance out of the infrastructure. That we're going to look at those customers and go back to them and saying, how can IBM and Power Systems and storage along these three elements together deploy, give them the benefit in terms of how they're going to move the transition. So this is a little bit technical pinch of it from a business side of it, why customers want to look at moving to SAP. Now, coming to a cloud piece of discussion, I think cloud is a very misused word in the industry. And I think Arvind and Swapan sir will also agree with me when I look at cloud. It is not about destination. It is all about what kind of a services you are deploying. And now once you decide on the services which is being deployed, it depends. You have to decide on the location of the services. The location can be an on-premise cloud. Location can be an off-premise cloud. Again, I have been telling people, I have been telling customers that public cloud is also a misused word. I think public cloud is nothing but an off-premise cloud, right? There is an on-premise cloud and there is an off-premise cloud. There is nothing else. And there will be always customers who are going to use both of these on-premise and off-premise to bring in cost improvements, to bring in flexibility in terms of how they're going to deploy these environments. So when it comes to a cloud kind of a deployment, customers, of course, most of the times we have gone and you were part of the discussion where customers have come back saying, Rohit, I don't need to move to a public cloud or a kind of a shared environment, but I need to optimize my environment so that I'm gonna help bring in the cost optimization for deploying a flexible and performing infrastructure. And we can do that very well on an on-premise and an off-premise deployment. Customer doesn't have a data center of his own. We can look at an off-premise. We can look at multiple offerings. We are bringing in pay-per-use kind of a deployment. We have actually working with customers who are gonna look at that. Rohit, I am okay to pay you for a 2 terabyte, but anything above 2 terabyte, I'm gonna pay as I use. So those are the flexible models also we are coming in and deploying with the customer. So again, cloud is a much more vague word. We need to go and understand what customer exactly needs. We're gonna give them those services and we're gonna deploy these services either on their data centers or the data centers which they decide, which can be either a public hosted environment or it can be a co-located hosted environment like in the terms of Nextra, Reliance Data Center, or a control-less environment also.
Okay, so you mean to say, Rohit, that cloud is the most heard terminology, but it is less understood in the industry. And yes, I agree to an extent that, when we really go back to a lot of customers nowadays and we start talking about these kind of technologies, the first thing come up from their management, not from the technologists, not from their CIOs, not from their IT people, but from their management straight away, that why are we not looking cloud? Because this is how they've been hearing all these during the golf course, sessions of theirs, and that their peers have deployed cloud technologies, and it seems as if they are lagging behind if they don't adopt a cloud technology. And there where things are really getting misused at times. But very well said. I think it is eventually a service, and that service can be extracted either from on-premise or off-premise. It doesn't matter, and it should not be given the dress code of cloud unnecessarily unless until it is really required from that perspective. So I come back to you. Now, since you evaluated IBM Power technology for your HANA landscape, and I'm sure while you were evaluating, there were so many vendors on an Intel platform also approaching you, and you also wanted to get into their evaluation process. So my question to you is, what made you choose IBM Power, one? And second, what was the evaluation criteria when you were doing it? And that actually helped you decide the right technology to really go for SAP HANA kind of a critical workload?
Well, Amit, I would say from my perspective, because what I understand that every organization has unique platform, unique operational purview and operational circumstances. So I would say from my perspective, what we have taken into considerations from business perspectives mostly, and based on our current situations. So 4 important things actually that we have considered in the top priority. One is this, my performance, number 1. Number 2 is my security, and third one is reliability, of course, and fourth one you would be your that support part of this, the whole platform. Either it could be from the OEM or it could be from my implementation partner. So that's I have shared actually, and I'm to adding some point from Arvind point also, that compliance and decision making and the production, no loss of productions and no loss of sales in the top line. And considering all these things, we need to ensure that our system is robust and reliable and from business continuity perspectives. Second important point that we have this is security. Yes, absolutely good point that you have also mentioned, and also Arvind also has mentioned that security, because based on my experience, I have not gone through any kind of down or leakage of informations or certain things, that because of this influx of lot of malware, spamming, like we are continuously facing a Windows platform. So this is one of the area that we need to look at with due diligence, keeping in mind how our organization would be running without any loss of even as a single minute of transactional loss, because our system is quite integrated across this country, even out of the country also. We have 120 countries operation, so we need to make sure that 24 into 7 operation is on without any single minute of disturbance. So in terms of this, the reliability, in terms of the security, and also the scalability, of course, because that's I share that our 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 organization is growing very fast, and also we need to empower people the analytic based platform actually. So today's environment may be not so appropriate at this moment to take care of my 7,000 people. Maybe coming 1 year, the people would be habituated, they would be mature to enough the system, then demand would be much more in terms of usage of the systems. So in terms of that usage of the system, maybe certain resources should be required to add or certain thing. So I'm talking about that either scale up or scale out operations should be visible without too much cost involvement, because today's environment also you can consider it is okay, it is in terms of the TCO and ROI it is quite good, but the variable cost would be much more higher. So with due diligence, we need to consider also keeping in mind my demand of these users, keeping in mind my growth of the organization in terms of this, inside this operation, outside these operations, and there should not be the too much unpredictable variable cost involvement. So these are the 5 factors we have considered. I believe that for every organization based on their situation, it will be different. And second part, the most important part in our case is that obsolescence of the current infrastructures. So every organization needs to consider their current situation, where they are, where we are at this moment. And based on that infrastructures, there what is the age, what is the performance, and considering all these things, then it will be easy for them whether the next generation the systems would be taking care of your business growth. So it will be easy for decide for to decide this kind of platform would be that. So these are the 5 parameters we have considered based on our current situations.
Okay, no, absolutely, sir. I think while we had this discussion, but it is very well summed up in this call. And I think that was precise evaluation criteria, and that's purely business governed criteria. And I think that's what we would always, request clients and always, and expect clients to evaluate not just on the cost piece of it, but purely from a business outcome perspective. And I think that was absolutely phenomenal. Evaluation criteria you have set in. And yes, we had some level of discussions around it. And you also mentioned one of a very important point about the obsolescence of technologies. And that's what the general purpose technologies have high obsolescence as compared to the specific technologies meant for specific workloads. And I think IBM Power comes with that thought process of a very specific technology for a specific workload like SAP HANA. And that's the reason the kind of you mentioned about ROI and TCO, comes out to be pretty good as compared. So Arvind, I take up the same question back to you, but in addition to it, because Swapan sir mentioned about the better ROI and TCO coming out of this particular technology. Since you have been using and you have also had a lot of evaluations around appliance-based kind of a technology versus a TDI architecture, a virtualized architecture, what IBM proposes. So how do you see these comparisons? What is the take of yours to the audience? And how do you see an ROI and TCO getting impacted because of these architectural differences?
Okay, so you want me to answer basically,
TDI versus
TDI and appliance, right?
ROI, TCO differentiation is what most of the customers are confused with.
Yeah. So I think we should not be confused. Okay. So first and foremost, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's after 2016, if we go with the stats that there has been a lot of degrowth into the appliance architecture which was there. Okay. And post that, now this TDI approach has been widely accepted by the customers. due to basically your flexibility. That's very no important thing. And the cost, which is no, if we compared with this previous one, so cost is very less from the appliance point of view. And also the flexibility definitely, and the ownership. So that's an important no, what I see the differentiator between the your no TDI base approach, which is preferable, but no, if I talk about from the ROA point of view, or no, say TCO point of view. Okay. So I think flexibility is a key here. Okay, that's the key here.
Certainly. I think you mentioned it right. Flexibility comes from the virtualization piece of it, and that's what the TDI architecture is all about.
But
And
just
where
sorry,
it is,
just for adding, for no, let me be more precise on the technical part. So the power comes with this no huge feature of virtualization. No, even correct me the numbers. I think we can go up to 16 instances on a single server. That's huge, right?
Mm, mm.
So while we are doing the evaluation, so there was some of these parameters we checked up, and this was a huge thing. And on demand, no upscaling or descaling, so that you can do.
Yeah, that's a very important
That
element.
that's an
Absolutely,
important thing. That's an
very important.
important thing.
Yeah, so that's what I was also pointing out about the virtualization, and I would want Rohit to really, quickly sum up about the technology, because in the SAP HANA landscape, especially when you said flexibility is more important, especially for the manufacturing where you start with, let's say, 10 plants and you want to add up with multiple plants down the line. Obviously, you need some machines which is not like a t-shirt size fit for all. You want a machine which is highly flexible. You want a machine which can really do a resource mapping, which can work as per the critical workload requirement at one point in time. The logical partitioning should be designed in such a fashion so that whichever logical partition requires the maximum performance should be given due resources, and then it should be able to manage of its own. So these are some of the very important aspects. So Rohit, I will immediately jump back to you, talking about IBM Power as a specific architecture for SAP HANA as a landscape, and what does it offer as a unique feature as compared to a general purpose Intel platform.
Sure, Amit. So I think Arvind and Swapan sir has clearly articulated three of the key highlighted parameters, right? One is resiliency, which is your availability, right? And there's a known fact in the industry that the risk is much more reliable, and I don't need to go to any client and explain it that. That's an understood fact of saying. Of course, I'm not saying Intel is not catching up. Intel is definitely catching up, but they are still uh, two stairs below as it comes to a reliability feature of a risk platform, right? The second piece of the important piece is the flexibility, in which Arvind clearly articulated, saying there the virtualization is the key, and the virtualization is part and parcel of each and every system. I don't sell virtualization as a separate engine. It is, even if you need to install a single VM on a single physical box, it will come with virtualization enabled. So what does it mean is that IBM does not want to distinguish in terms of a bare metal or a virtualized environment, and this is the reason why SAP, as Arvind was saying, uh, disturbance only. Okay. So as Arvind was saying, the flexibility up to the level of 16 production VMs running on a single physical installation, and you clearly said that the manufacturing environment are so agile in nature that tomorrow you need to add additional VMs. You should be able to flexibly deploy these VMs on the same physical server without impacting the current VMs, right? And this is the test before SAP approving a technology, and SAP endorses and does a deep test, which is called a neighbor noise test. Of course, Intel can also do virtualization. VMware is also there. KVM is also there. But when it comes to those testing, IBM was able to provide those tests and reports back to an SAP, saying each VM does not impact a VM sitting next to it, and which is called a neighbor noise test. And there's an extensive documentation which has been submitted to SAP to prove that IBM virtualization is a secured environment. It does not have these neighbor noise issues, which typically are seen in Intel environment, and that is why SAP clearly mandates that If you are using VMware, of course, there are some limitations to it. The maximum environment on a VMware is about 6 terabyte per day. Anything above 6 terabyte, you cannot deploy it as a VM itself. On an IBM, the largest, I can have multiple 24 terabyte instances sitting on the same physical box. So that is a flexibility and a virtualization piece of it. The final piece of it, which is the performance. We did a latest SAP benchmark on a per core performance. I think Power stood completely separate in terms of a performance. Intel today, with all these virtualization overheads and all, if I do the mathematics and the calculation, they will be somewhere between 1500 to 2000 SAPs per core. When it comes to IBM, we are in the range of 6000 to 6800. And that's a phenomenal difference, which I'm talking about. I can tell you, of course, Arvind and Swapan sir are running power systems in their environment, but I will tell you, with TDI Phase 5, we have a customer who is running a 7 terabyte running on just 26 Power 9 cores. A 7 terabyte deployment running with just 27 cores of Power 9. Do you know how much cores would be required to deploy a 7 terabyte on an Intel environment? SAP needs 228 Intel cores for running a 7 terabyte environment. So that is the difference. I'm talking about a performance engine over here. And these are the three things which all the customers are actually using. Again, reiterating the resiliency, the performance, and the flexibility. And these are the three things which add to the ROI, which we have seen customers benefit by deploying these infrastructure for running these SAP. Amit, you are speaking on mute.
You are on mute, yeah.
Sorry. Okay, so no, thanks, Rohit. I think very well articulated. And yes, as I am associated also with this technology for very, very long time, and I have always seen the kind of performance and the robustness of these machines. The features have absolutely been very, very unique as compared to a general purpose, platform. However, I do not intend to demean Intel. They are doing phenomenally good, but not all t-shirt size fit all. That's what I intend to say. There are critical applications for which there are specific applications for which you need specific architecture, and that's there where IBM Technologies has been scoring the maximum in terms of its providing its reliability and robustness into the customer's infrastructure. Now, because this is one of also the notion, if IBM has been so great in terms of technology, if they have been doing so great in terms of performance or maybe the reliability, of course, the price would also be, very, very high for all these. So this question goes back to Swapan sir and Arvind with a one-liner, because I know you can't share your cost obviously on the call, but certainly while your evaluation, I just wanted to hear a one-liner statement. Did IBM really costed you high? Swapan sir, over to you.
Okay. Well, very debatable point, of course, and I understand. But
you can count on ROI and TCO as well in case if you want to really answer. Yeah.
Yes. Honestly, I would say when I interact my lot of CIO before taking the decisions, and 90% fellow friends are used to say, "Hey, Swapan, IBM is at least for 30-40% cost is higher than Intel." Actually, I was amazed. Actually, is it so? Then I dig down from all perspectives, from correlating my business perspective, correlating my operations, correlating my overall growth, everything I have considered the best way with due diligence what we can. And honestly, my understanding is that if you add these operations, if you add your growth, if you add the value addition to the organizations, personally, I don't think it is too costly as compared to the Intel. It is, yes, little bit, but if you consider this TCO in terms of ROI, and that's a peace of mind operation, reliability, it will diminish your cost. So from that perspective, I would say not so much. It is considerable. What is the most important point is that your business is running without any disturbance. Growth is perceived as it is what the business is demanding actually, and we are giving that kind of things. So if it is happening like this, then I don't think 1%, 2% or 10% cost is higher. It doesn't matter.
Okay, you answered it all the way. So, Arvind, what is your take on it? Since you have been, and I know the kind of negotiations we have had, it was like good negotiation, all it. But what is your thought after running it for 3.5 years? What is that you really see? Is it a good proposition? It is a best proposition, or it is like an average and can be compared with Intel any day?
See, two things when we actually start our journey. So that time is two things are there. One is technical comparison and definitely the commercial part. Yeah. See, commercially we compare and IBM definitely was as the lowest for us and we opted. But then down the line, after 3 years, after 4 years where I'm standing, so I can say support matters a lot. So you keep on buying multiple things, but at the end of the day, support. So I am quite happy with the support from IBM and the reliability of the system. So touchwood, till now we don't have any as such major cases with the hardware. So the support which is coming from IBM and probably from the partner also, so that is tremendous. So it's a very proactive support. It is not a reactive support. So I have seen in the night also, immediate alarms, phone calls coming, a small minor alarm has come, event has come, because they know the production system, the risk of having a downtime in a production system. So this is very important. And definitely cost, what Amit was saying in the beginning, it all depends on the negotiation. By the way, on the lighter note, we are a good negotiators. It depends on that fact also.
No, definitely, and I think that's all our pleasure as long as we have really been able to help in any format of our relationship. So I think it was a good discussion, and since we have a lot of people really waiting, and I'm sure a lot of questions might be popping in. So I open up for the Q&A session now, and all our panelists are available. Any question anybody wants to ask about their experiences or maybe their thought processes while you are on the journey of your SAP HANA adoption. So it is an open forum now, and I would request anybody to really come up to ask the question, please. So I could see one of the question coming from Vishal Agrawal, and he has a question. Hi, I have a question of SAP mandate for existing customer to transition to HANA by 2027. Do we have roadmap, for Sybase? Okay, so do you want to take this up, Rohit?
Yes, the current strategy of HANA is 2027. But before that, there will be always peripheral environments like Theory, like Solution Manager, which customers do not want to deploy on SAP HANA. So they have a mixed strategy of running with Sybase and SAP HANA. Probably right now, I don't have an exact answer. Sybase is also an SAP database. It is not a third company database. So might be SAP Sybase will still remain. But yes, whatever is currently SAP direction, by 2027, after 2027, no other database will be able to support SAP deployment. So if that is a correct statement, you need to move everything to SAP HANA. But till 2027, customers are free to choose any database. Most of the customers choose Sybase because that is bundled with their SAP licenses. They don't need to incur any additional cost, which they would be able to do if they use DB2 or Oracle for those environments.
Okay. That's great, Rohit. I also want. So any other question do we have from the audience, please?
So I think Vishal also commented saying that it will be interested to see how that transition is being planned, as we have made large investments in Sybase and worried about the future. So Vishal, I think we can take that and we can come back to you separately. Probably SAP would be able to help with that in terms of a roadmap of Sybase beyond 2027. But yes, 2027, which was earlier 2025, 2027 is now the mandate of moving everything to SAP HANA as a database.
Okay. Okay, so since we have no question, Rohit, I want to throw this question back to you again. Now, since IBM has been considered as best technology over century now, and we know it's almost 109 plus years of its existence, and of late, IBM has turned very aggressive in positioning its OpenShift technologies. Okay, and they have been really working on a lot of platforms like AI, ML, or maybe deep learning, containerization, DevOps, OpenShift, etc. So, what is your take? How is IBM Power really taking up a next leap into adoption of those level of technologies, and how will that help organizations into opting the better, process automation or maybe digitalization, engine for themselves?
Right. Amit. So basically, currently, I will take SAP as an example, then bring into an OpenShift discussion. When I look at SAP earlier was in only supported operating system from IBM was only AIX. But now when I look at it, I think the majority piece of application, AIX is still supported on SAP landscape, but the majority piece of landscape are going to be Linux-based deployments. Now, when it comes to Linux, it is either a choice of SUSE and Red Hat. And as Arvind pointed out, Red Hat is now an IBM company, and we have joint collaboration with Red Hat to go and sell as a joint engine altogether. Now, when it comes to Linux, I think this is a shift which we did with 2014 when we announced Power 8. Because in Power 8, before Power 8, we used to install Linux on a Power platform in a different way, completely different than what Intel used to do, right? Which is typically a technological word is a big Indian and a little Indian. How you write the characters or a data in terms of a memory architecture, you write the biggest letter first and the smallest letter last. But Intel used to write the smallest data first and the biggest first. But with Power 8, we changed it. We brought in the similar capability of little Indian, which is the same way as Intel used to do it. And now we are in a state you can actually take a backup on Intel and restore it on Power from an SAP HANA engine perspective. So that's a vast change when I look at adopting Linux as an open source, as an open environment. Continuing that journey, I think the world is moving to a microservices enabled engine altogether. Now, when I look at microservices, it is a small kind of an engine which is deployed and which is very reliable, very repeatable, and very fast in terms of a deployment, right? All the largest environment, which is your Flipkart, your Facebook, your Google, all are running on a microservices environment. And that is why when you see, you don't have something called a downtime with these kind of environments, right? Have you seen a Google going down? Answer is no, because it is a microservices written architecture and it is deployed in a much more flexible manner. Now, when it comes to that microservices, I think once you make your application a microservices enabled application, then you need a framework to manage those microservices, and then the things of containerizations comes. A containerization and then management of containers, and there which our collaboration with Red Hat, not only Red Hat, but an open source engine. We support all the open source databases on Power. We support all the open source stack, open stack deployment on Power environment. We can actually go and deploy all the open source microservices based enabled on a Power system. And Red Hat helps us to push that envelope further by saying Red Hat OpenShift is actually delivers almost about 30 to 40% better ROI as compared to Red Hat OCP on an Intel platform.
I would really want to thank, Swapan sir. Thank you so much for you being there and absolutely vocal about your thought process about the technologies and evaluation criterias and the power of Power, what you could really come out with. And thank you so much, Arvind, for being there. You have been very supportive for lot many, situations and lot many, technology discussions. And thank you so much for being there. And it was a very good discussion and a great insight which really came out of this discussion. So thank you so much for being part of it. And thanks, Rohit, for the industry insightful information. And And I'm sure, as if I would really sum up, this particular technology is really been doing very, very good. There has been certain perceptions around, but as my team and I being personally involved with this technology for last so many years, I can really vouch for its adaptability. I can really vouch for its performance and robustness. And I have never seen any deployment failing. I have never seen any problems really coming up even after deployment. I have never seen systems going down unnecessarily, or maybe unplanned way. So these are really robust machines. These really forms a great virtualization strategy for any organization to really move from a workflow automation or a process automation perspective. One of the best platform to really offer analytics, and one of the best platform for DevOps and containerization technologies. So anyone of you planning for even a digitalization or a digitization mode within the organization, looking for any open source deployment, looking for any consolidation of your applications around Linux or maybe AIX as in Unix operating systems, I think you would not find this technology, this would be the best one to really fit in any situation at the best TCO and ROI. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for you being there. It was a very lovely session, very, very insightful session. Thank you very much.